I want to clear some things up after my last video. I immediately reacted to the Usman Du Plessis fight right after the event took place. And maybe there was some emotions involved. And one of the things I want to address right off the bat is the face paint. Now, I have said it numerous times already on the stream, on another like dedicated, I think it was a short or something like that. I was letting the people know that I had on what is referred to as Nigerian face. And it is 100% absolutely politically correct. It is socially and culturally accepted. And I want you to know that I did do my due diligence and I looked into this. Nigerian face is totally acceptable. However, what I did realize is that it's not very easy to get off. And I don't know how many, this video might get like 3,000 views. I have no idea. But if Kamaru Usman happens to see this, if anybody that knows Kamaru happens to see this, if you could send it to him, please let me know if there's any kind of homemade, any kind of household remedies as far as taking off the Nigerian face. I have been unsuccessful thus far, and I do have a job interview tomorrow, which I'm very concerned about. Apparently, I left it on a little longer than you're supposed to, and I just kind of out of ideas at this point. So Usman, I would appreciate it very much. But aside from that, I wanted to clear something up that I said in my video, which frustrated me, and I would never be able to live with myself if I didn't clear this up. I was talking about how throughout that whole fight, because I think some people got the wrong idea. By the way, let me remind you off the point. I don't like Dricus. I don't like Usman. I've made a ton of videos clowning on Usman over the years, roasting Usman. I predicted both times he would lose to Leon before everyone else. They thought I was crazy. And I said, no. He's going to take him out. And then Usman was beating him up that whole first fight until it finally happened. But I knew it. I did my MMA long division. Anyway, Usman was my pick, and I had to commit to it, you know. But I think a lot of people got the wrong idea in my immediate reaction video. And I think maybe somehow, I mean, I don't see it, frankly, but somehow I might have come off like a fan. And I was talking about how I got to respect it. I got to respect the game plan, fan or not, that I personally have never seen someone, you know, you've seen people like Mayweather do it, John Jones, whoever, where maybe they take a round to download. I've never seen someone do it for 4 rounds. Now, I do personally have a slow Wi-Fi connection here where I live. So I'm very used to things downloading very, very slowly. Oftentimes when I'm downloading something, I'll go have a meal and then I'll come back. But I've never, in a fight, in an octagon, boxing maybe it's a little easier to get away with than something like boxing. I've never witnessed that. 4 rounds of downloading his opponent with full confidence that he would turn it on in round 5. And I said that in the first video, and I said something along the lines of, he committed to downloading for 4 entire rounds so that he could give us the perfect round 5 on a silver platter so he'd be ready to go. And people thought that I was, and rightly so. And when I watched it after, I was like, yeah, I didn't really button that up well. I do not think he did a perfect round 5. I think that was his mentality. I think he was thinking, all right, I'm good to go now. Let's do it. And then he gets to round 5. And he did not do it. He definitely did not do it. I think he thought he was going to do something in the last 10 seconds. But it was very much too late by that point. So I just wanted to clear that up because I saw at least a few people say, what are you talking about, bro? He didn't do good. And I was like, oh, no, I made it sound like he dominated around 5. That is not how I feel. I don't think he won the fight. There's people saying that they feel like it was closer than it was and they thought he won the fight, especially after I watched it again. I've watched the fight again since then, and that's why I have a couple notes here, and I want to bring some things to your attention because you know it's different when you're there in the moment, you got all the adrenaline going, you're talking, you're with the homies, you're watching the stream, whatever. One of the things that I want to point out that I think is very interesting, the glove touch. Now, look, I know we're getting into some of the woo-woo kind of silly-willy stuff. Like, you talking about the glove touch? Who are you? Keyon Kimura? You're talking about the body assessment and the this and that, and the fool's blinking, and what is he, Britney Spears? I'm not, there's no disrespect to Kamaru, because I'm into that stuff too. I just know a lot of people hate on it. So, the glove touch, I thought that was very interesting. He touched gloves with Dricus, and we all know Usman does not touch gloves. He does not do it. And I know Usman has tended to get himself in these bitter situations where like the dudes hate each other by the time they fight. But even in situations where it wasn't necessarily like that, or even where the other dude put his arm out, he's like, chala. Even Gilbert Burns was like this. He's like, chala, he wouldn't do it. And so I went back and I was looking, and the last time that Usman did a glove touch was against Tyrone Woodley. And it was very begrudgingly. He didn't want to do it. Tyrone stuck it out, and you could tell there was a beat where Usman was like, he's like, all right, fine. And then he did it. And there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times after that, he did not do it. It was just done. He was trying to go full Khabib Nurmagomedov style, peace be upon him. He was trying to go Khabib style. And then I thought, wait a minute, is it like a weird... Did he get into some kind of mindset or something when he became the champ? And then it was like after Tyrone that he was, I don't know. I'm just saying, I knew him as that guy. He does not touch gloves. So I checked to make sure I was accurate. And I was like, okay, he did before. But it was 9 fights in between where something turned on. He's like, I'm not that guy anymore. So what that says to me, at least, you got to decide for yourself. What that says to me is there's something mental at play there. That's not accidental. The last time he did it was when he was not a champ, when he was not that guy, when he did not demand respect on his name. Then he got the strap, and then 9, and it's not a matter of just being the title holder, being the champion, because he wasn't the champion when he fought Edwards the second time, when he fought Chamoyev, when he fought Buckley, but he still didn't do it. He was just that guy. Some switch was turned on. Well, when he came back, he did the glove touch. To me, that says something is going on mentally, subconscious or not. I don't know if he thought about it. I don't know if he planned it. I just know 9 fights in a row where he's that guy, even when he has the fist out in front of him and he says, nope, and then he does it. I'm thinking, what's different here? Is he trying to be this guy's friend? Is he trying to get him to go nice on him? Is he trying to make sure there's no bad blood? I know we got to fight, but we're not enemies. I don't know. But that popped out to me. Another thing I want to address is the size conversation. Before the fight, people were saying that Dricus was too big for Usman, and I said that is ridiculous. Chamoyev's bigger than Dricus, and look at how Dricus did against Chamoyev, and look at how Usman did against Chamoyev. Size doesn't mean anything, and you have to understand when you say that, because people were saying it after the fact as well. So he was just too big. That's not only disrespectful to Usman going into the fight, that's disrespectful to Dricus after the fight. So no matter who you're a fan of, you might be a Dricus fan, be like, yeah, he's a big boy, he's too big. That's disrespectful to both fighters. It don't have nothing to do with that. And you should see that plain and simple. We could go outside of that, but just with the throwing Chamoyev in there against both of them alone, that has nothing to do with it. What it does have a lot to do with is Dricus listened to his coach, which you gotta find out where to draw the line, Dricus, for reals, bro. That's probably why you've been engaged forever, and she probably don't want to pull the trigger because she's like, am I gonna do this or not? You know, like when someone has like a really crazy like mom or something, you're like thinking about that mother-in-law, you're like, am I gonna pull the trigger? Well, that lady's probably thinking about your coach. You gotta figure out where to draw the line, Dricus. You gotta figure out where to draw the line. There's too much footage, dude. He even said something sketchy after at the post-fight press conference. He's like, anything my coach is telling me to do, I'll be doing. I can't remember. It sounded, go watch it. I remember I rewound that. I was like, oh, dang, he's just dropping breadcrumbs. But you got to learn where to draw the line, Dricus. But for this fight, it worked out. He listened to his coach, and Usman didn't. So Dricus, I counted them, and there were some other attempts. So he was very much head kick minded. So there were attempts, but landed? He landed that Leon Edwards head kick. I'm not just talking about threw it. Dricus landed it. I just watched the fight within this last hour. He landed it 19 times. I know it seemed kind of like a lot during the fight, but I don't know if anyone realized that it was 19. He landed it 19 times. And Dricus said after the fight, when he was talking to DC, he said, my coach said I got to spam those head kicks. He's like, I don't know if that's a good idea because he must have learned after the Leon fight. He must be training that. I'm sure he knows better by now. And his coach is like, no, just do it. So I guess Usman didn't learn. So Dricus listened to his coach and he landed 19 head kicks because that was his plan. Now, it looks like what Usman's plan was takedown, 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 takedown. He saw what Oliveira did against Max, I guess. He saw what Chamoyev did to Dricus, I guess. And he thought takedown, takedown, takedown. And he never got into his flow state. We've seen, I don't know how many years back ago it was when we were like, oh, dang, this ain't the Usman that beat Tyrone Woodley. At some point, he developed that crazy, crisp, long jab and just stayed fighting behind it. Well, he didn't do that in this fight. He didn't allow himself to go into a flow state. You could tell the whole fight, it was kind of like Alex Pereira just going like this, trudging forward, flat-footed, looking for a big knockout, looking for a big hook. The whole time, Usman's like, how can I take him down? How can I take him down? How can I take him down? And yes, Dricus was looking for that head kick, but he also knows who he was fighting. And you could tell, it didn't take that many minutes into the fight where it's like, oh, this dude just keeps diving at my legs. And when Usman actually did land, it looked good. When he landed the kind of shot that he was supposed to land, not these crazy haymakers, when he actually landed straight and solid, you could tell it affected Dricus. And no matter how much the commentators wanted to hype up Dricus, they couldn't help but acknowledge it. Like, oh, when there was one here and there, it just came out organically. But another place where Usman messed up is when he had him. When he had him on the cage, and I want to point something out that no. They called that one. Usman threw a groin shot to Dricus, and that definitely looked intentional to me. It wasn't like he was moving. He was going at this target, and then the angle change. It looked 100% intentional. He was backing Dricus up toward the cage, and as he did it, he did a groin shot and never allowed himself to get there. And I thought that he did a disservice to himself because that caused the referee to intervene and separate them, where Usman was going where the fight should have been his, doing work on the cage, taking him down, and above all, foot stomps. Now, we always hear people talking about, and we talk about it too, that dudes need to do what got them to the dance. How come El Mero Mero doesn't wrestle? People always say, why doesn't Gaethje wrestle? How come Bo Nickel doesn't want to wrestle? It doesn't make any sense when dudes do stuff like this, right? It was Chase Hooper. He was just talking about it the other day. I need to go back to my roots. I need to do what got me to the dance. And he did it, and he won. Usman, a lot of people think it's his wrestling. No. You know what got Usman to the dance? You know what got him to the strap and holding it and defending it to where a lot of people, I'm not saying I claim this, but where a lot of people think he's the best welterweight of all time? It wasn't the wrestling. It wasn't even that crisp jab. It was, yes, you're right, the foot stomps. I didn't see a single foot stomp throughout this entire fight. And that wasn't the only opportunity. I remember when I watched it again, I thought, Kamaru, what are you doing? Why did you kick him in the groin? You should have known that was going to cause a separation. You were going right toward the cage. You could have been stomping right there. And you missed that opportunity. Well, he ended up on the cage again more times in the fight. And I didn't see a single foot stomp. Not one toe was stomped throughout that entire fight. So Dricus was on his game plan. He was spamming those head kicks like his coach told him. And you know what else Dricus did well? And I don't know if anyone else caught this. It was beautiful. And it's almost like Dricus, I need to be careful now about what kind of videos I put out there into the ether because it's a danger. It's a danger, and it may work against my pick. I think people picked up on how accurate my pre-fight predictions, some call them prophecies, are, that now I have fighters watching them so they know what to do. And I think it backfired. I think I shot myself in the chancla. I'm going to have to consider releasing my pre-fight predictions post-fight. The thing that I'm referring to that I think Dricus caught on to was how beautifully and seamlessly Usman changes levels and ducks under striking, ducks under those shots to go for a takedown. Well, here's something that Dricus was doing throughout the whole fight, and it was so effective. He landed so many knees on the dome of Usman. There were so many times where Dricus would throw shots and Usman would duck under, trying to get the takedown, and Dricus's knee was right there up the middle. Now, I don't know if that was him. I don't know if that was that flow state. I don't know if it was that muscle memory or I have to assume that it was my video. I mean, I know there are alternatives, but that to me is the front runner. You be the judge. But he was throwing shots. Usman was ducking under right into a knee. And Usman seems to be a dude that doesn't learn from past mistakes. Just like, again, the head kick being spammed. Catching those knees over and over. And then when he went to the corner, his coach, not just Trevor Whitman, another dude who was there that's not famous enough for me to know his name, they were telling him, stop being so wide. You need to throw straight shots. I have it right here. What did he say? He said, don't get so wide, keep it short. He literally told him not to get wild. He told him to stay behind his jab, do not stay in the pocket and exchange. And Usman didn't listen to that either. And I don't know if you could tell DC's homies with Usman. DC looked like if, one of his homies passed away after the fight. He was very upset. He's making faces when Dricus was talking. He made an even worse face when Dricus was talking about Jesus. I don't know if DC's an atheist. I don't know what's going on within that dude's heart. I'm praying for him. But anyway, DC was literally saying, you got to go straight. You got to keep it short. Why are you throwing those haymakers? Like, everybody was saying it, but Usman. But with all this being said, with the headshots, with the knees down the middle, Usman not fighting like he was supposed to, Dricus looked very, very tired at the end of the second round. And then at the beginning of the third, when he just got off the stool, he was like drenched. He looked sweaty. He looked like he would, like if he never fixed his deviated septum. He was breathing very heavy. He looked much worse than Usman. But Usman was not finding ways to capitalize on that. Usman's corner was telling him, look at him. He looks tired. You need to take advantage of this. And he just wasn't doing it. He was even told in the corner at the last, when they were going into the fifth, Trevor Whitman told him, you need a finish. And Usman goes, really? So I don't know if this dude is so, and again, I've never liked him. I've always talked about how he's so cocky and has so much of an ego. Maybe he's just so ridiculously ego-driven that's why he fights with ego. That's why he wants to sting and bang. And Dricus was talking after the fight about how he stayed poised and he stayed patient and controlled, and he did. Usman did not. He was fighting with emotion, and he was fighting with ego, and he was not listening to his coaches. And I think maybe that's why after the fight, during the interview, Usman even told DC that he didn't feel like he represented his coaches and his training camp well. And I feel like I've heard him say that before. And I don't know if that's just a thing that he says or if he knows exactly what he did and how he didn't listen like Dricus listened to his coach. Something else that I think is very important to mention, which for whatever reason, this doesn't seem to be like a big deal to anybody. And even during the fight, the commentators were hating on Usman for this and saying, oh, it grazed, it hit his leg first, and then it kind of barely touched the cup after. It clearly, Dricus' kick clearly hit Usman in the groin. And I never hear anybody talk about this, but what happens when you hit somebody straight, square, solid on the groin? What happens to a man who takes that kind of abuse? How does it affect him? Well, this is children, please, earmuffs. It affects what? I'm trying to, children, are your earmuffs on? The testicular region, your testicles, okay? I don't know if I'm gonna get flagged on YouTube for saying that. Okay, so what is that? It has a similar root word, right? What does it affect when you're hit in the testicles? Your testosterone. Dricus was going after Usman's testosterone. How are you going to stand in a cage across from another man trying to take your life with his bare hands with no testosterone? With your testosterone in dire straits. At that point in the fight, Usman was better suited to star in the Odyssey than he was to face Dricus Du Plessis. This dude effectively took his testosterone away from him. He shoved him. You know what happens? Like, I remember from biology before I dropped out of school, there was this, you know what happens when you push, earmuffs, children, you know what happens when you push up the testicles into the stomach? You essentially become a woman. Once they go inside, they're called ovaries now. So Dricus basically gave Usman ovaries for the rest of the duration of the fight. You had a dude in there fighting with no testosterone. I'm going to have to stop there. I can't go any deeper on the topic. I'll have to put the extended version on Patreon, link down below. But basically, you cannot expect a man to fight at his highest caliber when his testosterone has been taken away from him. And nobody cared to do anything about it. All they wanted to do was act like it didn't happen. And they wanted to create a narrative. Good job, Usman. You made it to the end, bro. You took the damage. You could take a punch. You got a hard head. And you know the narrative that they're trying to create? They're trying to turn him into the Nebraskan zombie. He's turned into one of those fighters where they want to give him a trophy for being able to take a beautiful beating. Congratulations. Congratulations, Usman. The end of this fight was the only time in my life that I ever have seen Trevor Whitman not smiling, not looking like a psychopath, actually looking sad. And for a moment, I thought that Pat Barry had entered the venue. But no, it was because of Usman's performance or lack thereof. Trevor Whitman was probably thinking, oh, the eye poke, which I don't agree with. It didn't look like an eye poke. It just looked like the knuckle of his thumb got in the eye. Trevor Whitman was you know what? He probably wasn't even sad about Usman. Trevor Whitman was probably like, you know what? The UFC will finally buy my gloves. Then that wouldn't have happened. Then it wouldn't have gone in his eye. Here's what we learned from this fight. Usman fights with ego and emotion, and he does not listen to his coaches. And here's what we learned about Dricus. He definitely listens to his coach. Probably a little bit too much. There's a lot of footage.